Fresh and
All right, welcome back to another episode of Fresh and Buds. I am your host, Tommy Fresh, and I am joined yet again by one of my best friends at this point, Mr. Matt DeMarco, aka Flake. How you doing, buddy?
I'm well. I'm glad that I've been upgraded to best friend. I don't think I'm best at anything. I think I'm a good friend. I'd like to be known as being a good friend. But best? This is some high accolades.
Well, now that you mention it, we'll just downgrade you a little bit to good friend, and then we'll work on the best going forward. But how you doing, man? You just had like another crazy weekend, which we're going to get into at the main topic. But you've been really going hard. We hung out in Vegas, then you were in Ohio. How you feeling right now?
I am feeling my apartment is an absolute disaster because I haven't even had a chance to sort of catch up with chores and stuff like that based off of coming back from Vegas and then having to go to Ohio soon after. And this week for me is very much the back to reality style week where I have an RTN on Sunday. I have some a friend of mine, Charmer, who casted with me in Ohio, is coming to Toronto with his family. So I'm going to go to the zoo with Charmer on Saturday, which is amazing. And that's the biggest part of it is just trying to figure all this nonsense out. But like in the meantime, there's like laundry that needs to get done. There's cards scattered all over the freaking place, and but the motivation is that they're like in my mind. I'm like, F the dishes. I have flesh and blood stuff that I want to do and get involved with, and like it's you and me recording this is quite frankly a rescue because otherwise I would be doing dishes right now. So I appreciate this.
I'm glad to help you in that regard. I myself am not a big dishes doer. I just hope they get done, and then eventually, sometimes I do them. But I'm glad that you're doing well, and I think that's something that people don't really think about, right? When we're all out here doing these fun events, like crazy 4-day, 5-day weekends, we have reality to come back to sometimes, and I think that's ultimately why I wasn't able to do Ohio myself. But it's tough, man. There's so many. It's great because there's so much flesh and blood going on, right? It's amazing.
Yeah,
I
you were sorely missed. I
Yeah.
have to interject here because we amidst that weekend there were several occasions where don't get me wrong, the people that were there were some of the best people. There was Elaine and Carolina and Logan and Jordan and Dagan and Dalen and a myriad of wonderful human beings, and Brendan and Charmer and all these wonderful people. And just there were several occasions where we're like, what would just enhance this? What would be that extra shake of Parmesan on top of this pizza was basically some Tommy Fresh. So you were sorely missed.
Well, I do appreciate that, and it really boiled down for me was, well, it's in Ohio, and I can't really, find a reason to go there. Just kidding, Jordan, Abby. I love Ohio, and I can't wait to go in September for Columbus. That'll be a lot of fun. But, it did look like an amazing time, and I do want to get into that. But yeah, there is so much flesh and blood going on right now, and we just, well, most of the world had Uprising released last weekend, and America, we wanted to save it for the 4th of July, celebrate our birthday, give us Uprising, and they'll be out this weekend. I did get my case a little bit early, which was nice, and I cracked some good stuff, my friend. Have you cracked any Uprising yet?
I have, but nothing that is like my case or my boxes. Basically, it was whatever was in Ohio. We did a bunch of drafting there, so that was the most of it. Which is funny because I had the opportunity to get my boxes a little early, to go ahead and pick them up. I think on the Wednesday and whatever. But I was like, okay, Wednesday I was absolutely just jam packed with like all the stuff prior to driving to Ohio on the Thursday. So I was like, okay, I'll pick it up when I get back. I'll swing by on my drive home from Ohio. And usually, as soon as I cross the border back home, I was like, okay, it's still another hour and a half to get home. Plus, if I want to go pick up the box, that's another 45 minutes on top of that. So do I really want to tack on another extra hour and a half to my day before I actually get to deposit my ass onto my couch? And to be fair, having Taco Bell on the way created a scenario where, frankly, it was more so the clock that I was racing than anything else. That was that. I mean, I don't mean to turn the conversation into that, but like, let's be real. When you eat Taco Bell across the Ohio-Pennsylvania border, you basically light a Mission Impossible style fuse on your entire endeavor, and then it's a matter of just crossing the finish line on home base. That's what you need to do. You need to slide in home. Get right back.
Well, I mean, I guess in a lot of ways, having Taco Bell is a lot like playing Oldham. Your greatest opponent is the clock, and and I'm glad to know that you made it, and hopefully crack some of those boxes.
I don't want to go into further detail. Nonetheless, long story short, I do not have. I have, I think, seven case plus 3 that is waiting for me in various different forms and facets. But of which the case is what I'm going to go pick up on Sunday from Harry Tarantula. So I'll have my share, and I'm excited for it. But I've been sharing the joy of seeing everybody else sort of share theirs. I know that you guys are still a couple days away, I think, officially from getting that underway. But all in all, I think I'm going to be diving into my cases in the same time that all of my wonderful Yankee friends are.
Yeah, go Yankees. Shout out Harry Tarantula. That's your boy David Rude runs that store, correct? And
he does.
He's very vocal on Twitter, and he's really, I do appreciate how vocal he is about, figuring out some distribution stuff. And, this is something that LSS, like, I have to imagine is such a uphill battle right now because, it's there. And you mentioned it on your podcast with James that, it's like suffering from your own success in a way and like catching up. And on top of that, all the global supply chain issues that we're facing. I mean, we see it in everything. It's like you can't even get lumber, in some places. So I feel for LSS and the very tough task that they have right now in the state of the world. But I do appreciate David's
Dave sometimes has those old man yells at cloud vibes, but the thing about it is that all of the points he makes are very poignant and honest and truthful. Like they're points that are actually important, and he is somebody who honestly is a champion of the game within the community, somebody who all Dave wants to do is promote the game. He absolutely loves it. He also really loves Magic, and he's a pro in his own right. But Harry Tarantula is like an institution in Toronto. It has the best players play out of that place. Isaac Hurt, Sean Dollywall, Matt Dilks. I don't say myself. I wouldn't include myself in that sort of spot. But even I'm assuming, I don't know for sure, but I imagine that someone like Tarek Patel, who's moving back to Canada, will probably be playing out of Harry Tarantula as well. That place is a murderer's row. Like there's no easy armories. There's no nothing. It's just nothing is given up. Every game is tough. And Dave really wants to promote the game and the culture. The problem is like you mentioned, is like there's so much BS-ery, as it were, when it comes to certain aspects that I'm not fully aware of. But when he sort of lays it out on the line, it becomes more apparent. And I've had a lot of discussions with him either on the podcast or privately, where it's difficult. It's tough to run a store when you don't necessarily. It's like you want to build a castle, but you're given one pallet of wood, and it's like, all right, well, what do we do? Like we can build the framework of it, but it's not going to withstand any kind of wind or rain or anything. But it's what it is.
Yeah, it's very tough, and you can only hope that it gets better going forward, and the infrastructure kind of catches up, and even talking to LGSs here in the States, and they're running into the same issues. I know Sin on Twitter, who's in the Pittsburgh area, has been very vocal about his local stores like not really getting any kind of allocation, and it's very tough. And do they run limited events, or do they sell it to the players? It becomes a really difficult decision. But I'm hoping that there's some changes, and it sounded like um, when James was on your podcast that is something that they are working on, and I think it's important as players to know that it's not going to happen overnight, right? It's going to take some time. But speaking of your podcast, can you, since you've last been on, can you give us a little bit of a state of the game for instant speed and whatever else you got going on? Mainly the stack, which I was on not too long ago.
Yeah, well, instant speed. I mean, one thing that I need to clear up that a lot of people might not know or whatever is that instant speed is like my creation. Same thing with the stack. The stack is my creation. They're all housed on 983 Media. 983 Media is like a media house that does a lot of production of various different shows. They do a bunch of Gwent content. They do a bunch of trivia shows. The person who runs 983 Media, someone by the name of Mark Gibson, has a lot of experience as a TV producer and does stuff like that. Just somebody, you know, our age who loves card games, loves that kind of element that years ago, and I know you'll appreciate this because you're a Seinfeld fan, but do you remember the episode of Seinfeld where separately George and Jerry could not hold down a relationship, but together they joined forces to create like one good man? Like
Yeah.
that's the two of us together, Mark and I, earlier on, where it was like I couldn't edit or put together anything, none of the technical nonsense. I was garbage at it, marketing, all that stuff, terrible at it. Mark was excellent at that stuff, but wasn't really enjoying the spotlight or being the voice or having or streaming or doing that. So we were kind of like, how about together we, so 93 Media was essentially his brainchild, his production, which has started to grow in leaps and spades because of a reputation that was built of good quality content, and kind of not, I don't say not associating with bad people, but when you've got a toe in the content creator pool for so long, you kind of know which ends of the pools are being peed in by bad people, as it were. So keeping out of the wrong lanes or out of the wrong parts of the pool was part of it, because we just wanted we wanted to do the right thing with the right people. And but the problem is I'm not a 983 employee. I don't own it. I don't run it. That is something that people are not aware of. But the stack and ISP, anything I do, I usually offer to him and say, here's an idea. How do you like it? This is what I want to do. And then whether he gives me feedback on it and it's a green light or it's a red light, and he says, go with it. Do what you got to do. Send me the raw footage. I'll do my thing and we'll make it work. Also, Alias V from Magic from MTG, she's she's one of the editors, producers at 93, and she's responsible for a lot of my content as well. She's a really good friend of mine, an A+ human being. I don't want to ramble too much about this, but ultimately 93 Media and Instant Speed are two different things, and I need to clear that up. 93 as a media house does a lot of people's content. Mine just happens to be there. Instant Speed, the state of Instant Speed, frankly, is the numbers are kind of not reflective of the impact. And in my opinion, I've said this to many other content creators over time, is that if you're merely looking at numbers, at clicks, at views, you are kind of missing the big picture of the impact that you're trying to make on a community. Because frankly, if I measured everything in views, I would probably have given up my venture many years ago. So I don't look at views as much as anything else. I look at, am I putting out good content? Is it responsible content? Is it valuable to the community experience? What does it do for the community, and what does it do for my reputation? And ultimately, it's a grind. It's difficult, but look at the community you've put together. And I mean, this is not an indictment on you, but yourself, myself, we're not out there just absolutely slaying YouTube. We're or Spotify. We're not doing that. But look at the community and the the reputation that you yourself have garnered, and the friendships and the community that trusts and appreciates you, that's a better barometer of success, in my opinion. And with that success, doing things the right way, it has been great. And Instant Speed is not breaking any records. I'm not slaying it, but we have healthy numbers in a growing community, and people like the content. I'd like to think they like me, and that's where we're at. And it has, honestly, the hard work that I've put in has afforded me a lot of great opportunities and great friendships. So that's the success that I want to measure, from a very selfish standpoint. Because, when you approach a sponsor, or when somebody was like, well, show us your numbers, I'm like, okay, I'll show you the numbers. And then that's basically going to probably flounder this entire discussion. But sponsors don't care about me or my show very much, because they just care about clicks and views. However, community related support has been excellent. That's where sponsors like FabDB, BCW, we're talking, we have an arrangement that we're going to be doing with kayfabe cards out in Utah, people who I've met. And a lot of those opportunities arose from the fact that you do good work, you're a good person, and your reputation is your number one asset. It is your number one marketing tool. And that's kind of what I've built my career on. And that's where ISP is now. It's not breaking records with numbers, but it's in my opinion, I think people believe it's a trustworthy outlet for community connection. And that's what I'm happy about.
Yeah, and I mean, I think you're doing a great job with it, and obviously, the exponential growth you've seen. You say you can't look at the numbers, but I mean, there is growth, but I have to agree with you. There's a difference between being people hearing you and people listening to you, right? And we want the listens. We don't want just to the noise. We don't want to be noise, right? We'd rather just be listened to. And I think we both align pretty well right there, that we just want what we say to matter to who's listening, right? And that, in the end of the day, I think that is a net positive for whatever content we're doing, and that's kind of what we strive for. But Instant Speed's pretty killer. I can think of one really great guest you've had. I don't know. He's from New Jersey. He loves blue cheese. I mean, you guys can go.
I mean, Tommy Fresh is let's be real. You are an absolutely beloved entity within Flesh and Blood. And just off the fact that we were all having a good time, and we're like, how do we make this time better? And it was inject some Tommy Fresh into the party. And again, it's just, this is not unique to myself or yourself or whatnot, but everyone out there is busting ass and making things happen. Like Logan, Jordan, and Abby have Flesh and Pod, and they have a great chemistry. And I had them on the podcast. We recorded it 2 days ago, yesterday, and that's coming out this week. But ultimately, the one thing that I just love is the fact that there's no animosity. There's no air of competition. There's enough real estate out there for everybody to just plant their flag, pitch a tent and enjoy their time. But you can probably agree, when you say, someone hearing us or listening to us, there's no better compliment that I get, no better feeling than when I see a comment somewhere random where somebody's like, oh, well, if you listen to Instant Speed on with so and so, they mentioned XYZ, or they're like, hey, well, on the Fresh and Buds podcast, they were talking to Flake, and Flake said blah blah blah, and Tommy mentioned this and whatever. Anytime someone refers to us, it's such a heartwarming moment. To me, that's positive feedback that people trust us with their time. And honestly, without sounding too existential, but as you age, time is legitimately the one resource that is constantly fleeting. You can have as much money, as much space, as much whatever as you can possibly strive for, but when it comes to time, it's the one resource that is finite and constantly fleeting. And when people trust you with their time, it is the pinnacle compliment that you can receive.
Oh yeah. And it's the best. I mean, whether it is someone coming on to the show like you are right now, which I appreciate so greatly. I appreciate anybody who will give me their time to have on the show. And if it's people listening, I mean, I just you know, you know, I remember almost a year ago, you know, I'm coming up on a year on the podcast, and I remember like, are people going to listen to this, and putting it out into the void, and then finding out that some people did. I was like pretty stoked, and it just feels good. And you know, in the end of the day, it's not a numbers thing, and yeah, but it's awesome.
Well, to some, so that's the thing. It's like my producer's probably gonna be like, "You idiot! Stop saying that!" Like nobody's gonna want to sponsor or you know throw money at it because again, part of it is also you put so much time in, you'd like some sort of you know kickback to a degree. But yeah, we have I don't want to say conflicting business sense like Mark and I. Mark is very much you can't pay bills with hugs and kisses, and I'm very much a
Let's
hey, but
try.
like, well, yeah, exactly. I'm like, well, let me talk to the guy, like you know. Like, so that's kind of where we're at. But he's got the better business head on his shoulders, whereas I'm essentially more of the hey, we got like 15 comments on our YouTube video. That's pretty sweet, right? And he's like, yeah, but never mind. Just yeah.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, you know, that's why you guys are such a good duo, the perfect man together. And
Mm-hmm.
tell us about the stack, which is new from the last time that you were on this show.
Oh well, the stack is actually way back when I used to be exclusively into Gwent and such, I came up with a show called the Coin Flip. Coin Flip is a very Gwent related term because the beginning of the game you flip a coin. Blue coin means you go first, red coin means you go second, and there are advantages to both. So I created a show called the Coin Flip where I would bring two Gwent personalities on and I would make a statement and I would have I would flip a coin and I would say, all right, I'd point to whoever was on one seat. I said, if it's heads, you're arguing for the statement. If it's tails, you're arguing against it. And the other person, and then I would essentially mediate the debate. So it would be very much stack related in terms of the format. But I was like, it's too much work to lock in two guests. One guest can sometimes be difficult. Coming up with multiple, you know, and what if the guest is not into it? What if the one guest is just a better debater than the other? So I basically boiled it down to I need something in the interim, because I was bored and I wanted more content to do, but I wanted something that was a lot more concise, a lot more to the point, less open discussion. Just give me your answer. Let's drop it and let's go with that. And the stack was essentially a very boiled down version of the old school coin flip show that I did. The premise was the same. There was just no debating, right? It was just you're for it, you're against it. And when it comes to, you know, the concept of the show, the stack is like, okay, well, something will either resolve or it fizzles, you know, and I figured that was a good enough CCG related term. And then it kind of went from there. And at the moment, 93 Media is actually creating a Magic, an MTG version of the stack, and a Runeterra version of the stack, and possibly, not sure, but possibly a Gwent version of the stack too. So they're going all out. Like Amy the Amazonian from MTG is going to be doing that. Shermie, the cosplayer, is going to be doing the Runeterra one. So there's all kinds of options about the show. People like the show apparently, and I'm just happy that people enjoy it.
Yeah, I had a blast when I was on. I love that kind of concept. It was fun because like it's like weird. Like I showed up and I'm like, well, because I knew you asked questions like, am I going to be ready to answer these? Like,
Right.
and you know, obviously, I was, but like it was a ton of fun, and I think you know, hey, check it out if you haven't, buds. It's a good time. But speaking of going back to the instant speed, how did part two of having Mr. J Dubs, Jimmy Blanco, James White? How was
Jimmy
that?
Blanco. I
Part
love
two.
it. First of all, that is amazing. I was like, J Dubs, all right. I don't know if he'd like that, but Jimmy Blanco is like really freaking good. I really like that. Having him on the show again, I'm absolutely blessed that he's willing to do it. And yeah, I don't like having him on the show again. Obviously, is just a joy. And the what besides his accessibility, of which I appreciate. What I appreciate even more beyond that is his candidness and his fearlessness to answer questions. When he was on for the first time, the list of questions I gave him was ambitious, and he took it, said, yeah, that's cool. In fact, let's also talk about XYZ. And he would throw in some more controversial or, stuff that I didn't even think that he would even want to touch with a 10-foot pole, that he's like, no, we need to talk about this. Let's talk about it. And he is very much, he has been very vocal and very transparent about the fact that he understands that people like you and I are essentially the front facing aspect of Flesh and Blood. People will see the product, but when they want to learn about it, who are they learning about it from? They're learning about it and getting deep into the culture by people like yourself, myself, Pitch Perfect Podcast, Arsenal Pass, Flesh and Pod, the Combat Chain, all of these awesome other entities out there are jumping into are your launch pad for getting into the culture and understanding the game. But he is fully aware of that. So he wanted to make sure that he's accessible to us to answer the tough questions. And obviously he's super busy, but he told me, he's like, we'll do it basically ahead of pretty much every card release. We'll do it. So we did it in January ahead of Everfest, and he did it a couple of weeks ago ahead of Uprising, and that was essentially the mojo. But what I appreciate most about him, again, is the fact that he is just going to answer the questions as they're presented without trying to spin it. It's just, this is the problem, and this is the issue, and this is where we screwed up, or this is where we're struggling, and this is where we're doing things right, and this is where we're doing things wrong. There's no spin. There's no media relations dude who's there to sort of make sure that it's cleaned up, and it's just James. The problem is also for James is that there's only so much, because he's already doing so much. So I was just lucky enough that, and we planned it like literally, I think 3 or 4 months in advance, like a month after the original interview was published. I messaged him again to say thanks again. I said, we're doing it again. Would you want to do this, a couple times a year? He's like, yeah, we'll do it in June ahead of Uprising. I said, bang. So lock it in. So hopefully he sort of can eventually kind of take a seat back and just enjoy the spoils of his efforts. Right. But who knows? He's also, like he mentioned in the conversation, he said, I'm a gamer. This is what we do. So.
Yeah, I mean, I get the feeling from watching him on your show that he's very much, I think he really loves being behind the scenes and as a gamer and kind of getting involved with all that, and but it's really, I've said it before, I'll say it again, him coming on your show and also meeting him and him being on Kellen's channel. It is always great to see kind of this human side to the man, the myth, the legend, right? And because I think sometimes you can put those people like on like Mount Olympus and they stay there, and it's good to have them come down from the mountain and we get a good feel for what the human was that created this amazing game that we all just like love so much, and it also gives a face, for when things that don't go the way we want them to, right? With Uprising getting pushed a week. I mean, that's tough. I can't even imagine how it feels to be at LSS right now, because personally, in my daily job, we do consumer products, and things get pushed like ever since COVID. Things get pushed at least like 10 times a year, and it like these major releases, and sometimes paychecks depend on that. So you're just like, God, I can't even imagine like a smaller company that's just still growing to have to worry about that. But yeah, I enjoy seeing like the human side of James. But speaking of Uprising, though, what are your thoughts on Uprising so far, and how do you think it's going to play out for France, which I believe you'll be attending?
I will be attending. I will be on the casting roster in France, which is awesome. I've known for a little while. I just couldn't say anything. But I think James sort of let the cat out of the bag on the podcast. So I'm like, oh, if you said it, I can say it. So it's exciting. Uprising has been exquisite. I was a little bit skeptical, 2 draconic heroes, 1 ice hero. How does that work for draft? yeah, all the all the discussion about us talking about all this weird nonsense. He was on the podcast. The one thing he mentioned was like, yeah, it was fun to listen to you idiots sort of just like knock your heads together about absolutely nothing. I was like, yeah, I guess you're you're right.
Well, when he said that, I was like, oh, he's talking about me.
Yeah,
That's so nice.
He is. No, he definitely was listening to us. He was listening to everybody. He was listening to myself and Armada talk about it. Like he was listening to everybody just come up with these conspiracy theories about it. And I think he actually called it conspiracy theories. But all in all, I think Uprising is, the more I play it, I've drafted it like sealed or drafted. I've done at least 10 sealed limited events with it. And every single time I play it, I'm either figuring out, I have a new opinion of who's the strongest, and I have a new opinion of just how delicately balanced it is. Because Icelander at 20 health versus Icelander at 18, completely different story. The amount of times I wished I had an extra point of health here or there to close out a game on Icelander. I'm very, very excited for how these heroes will impact CC. Blitz, even how it'll impact the overall competitive meta. But in reality, what this has kind of put into my brain more than anything, and I'm sure you can agree, is that we need more draftable sets. I think it's a 2+1 every year. A draftable set ahead of first Pro Tour, draftable set ahead of second Pro Tour, supplemental ahead of Worlds. Bingo bango, have fun. I think that is absolutely a necessity now, because draftable sets, Everfest was awesome. Everfest came out, everybody opened their cards, had a good time, but the feeling was gone after about a week. Once everybody busted their cards and everyone figured stuff out, because there was no events, there's no draft, there's no nothing. Like, what are you going to go and do another Monarch draft somewhere, a Tails draft for the 900th time? I think it needs more draftable sets, and this set is so well tuned that all it makes me want to do is play more and more limited.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, I'm right there with you. I mean, I've been pretty vocal about we need draftable sets all the time. I mean, to me, the supplemental stuff, it's great for constructed and what it does for constructed, but God, it's so hard to really get excited about a release when like all you can do is open it and add stuff to your deck. I guess. I mean, I understand that some people or it's totally cool with them. They love Everfest, they love Crucible War, but it's just it's weird to me, and it is what it is. Because like how much can you supplement a format, especially as we get a larger and larger card base? How much can you actually influence this without putting out these cards that are insane, like Starvo? But it's like it doesn't. I can see the long term plan with supplemental sets not holding up. I think they should change it a little bit, but just because we need to be excited. I mean, look at how successful Uprising is right now. I mean, everybody's pumped. I mean, people are in the States are like dying because they want to get their hands on these cards this weekend, and we're all jealous of everybody else in the world. Who everybody's cracking them on Twitter like, oh, what the hell? It's like, I'll move into Belgium. But yeah, I'm right there with you. It's draftable sets, limited sets. Yeah, we need a set schedule of that. I mean, I think that 2 and 1 is perfect, and that was the one thing that was missing for Jersey, right? A split format, but. Hoping that changes.
It's
in the
changing.
future.
That's absolutely changing. I don't know what the format in France will be necessarily, but I can almost guarantee that at least Worlds is going to be a split format. Mixed is going to be constructed and limited. And I think that James is completely aware that is the way to go moving forward. You might not see callings that way. You might not see battle hardens that way, obviously, but any premier event, any tier 1 event like Pro Tour or Worlds is going to be split. I think it's just the way to accurately distinguish who the best in the world are, because people can play CC and be absolutely ass at draft, and that's just the way it is. So what, are you truly the best in the world, or is the player who went X1 and CC and undefeated in draft, I'm pretty sure they're better. Like that's kind of the way it goes.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that we can confidently say that moving forward, the premier events will be mixed formats.
Yeah, I agree, and I'm excited for it. I know this is a big year of kind of figuring everything out, especially with Pro Tour, our first Pro Tours and Worlds. So, going forward, we'll have a better, I guess, idea of what we can expect, which is nice. I do want to do a quick fresh faves, but I want to do Uprising edition with you.
Sure.
I want to get.
We don't do Crack-a-Pack anymore.
It's tough. Well, I mean, I don't have any Uprising packs on me. And well, that's another thing. I stopped doing Kraken packs with Everfest because like, I'm like going through these
your
commons.
9,000th pack of Everfest. Yeah, dude, I got a stack right here. So on my Discord channel for Instant Speed, we do box break trivia, where basically people pick a pack. Like I lay them all out, then I do a trivia question. Whoever answers in, we open the pack, and you get points based on what's in there. If there's a cold foil, it's like 10. Rares are 1 point. Rare foils, all that other nonsense. And if nobody answers, it goes to the AI or whatever, which called I used to call it the shame pile because I would put the points in the shame pile, but it eventually translated to Seamus O'Pile was the name of the character. And there was a time where Seamus O'Pile ripped off 4 consecutive Majestic packs, 5 consecutive Majestic packs, including a pack that was cold foil. It had a cold foil in it, a foil Majestic, and another Majestic in it. It was obscene, and that was just like, it just blew everyone out of the water. So that was just incredible. Anyways, I don't know why we're talking about this, but yeah,
I don't know.
We're done opening packs.
I'm probably, Seamus O'Pile sounds like he's one of my uncles. But yeah, no Kraken packs during I stopped during Everfest just because, like, I mean, I can't even what would you pick? Well, you can't pick anything. It's not a draftable set, but we're back in Uprising. So, but we'll do the fresh faves Uprising edition with you, Flake.
Lay it on me.
Who's your favorite Uprising hero?
Icelander. Mainly because I don't say I have no interest in Dromai. I just don't have patience to sort of read the Dromai cards. Fi is very familiar already as somebody who's played a lot of Katsu and Briar. Having long combat chains is already interesting, familiar to me and no longer too interesting to dive into. Icelander, however, I've never touched Wizard. I forced myself to play Icelander at the premiere event with the pre-release. I made it to top 4 at Harry Tarantula off of Icelander, and after that, I was like, "Wow, this hero's got a little bit of sort of spice to it." Playing within the margins, doing a lot of heavy lifting on your opponent's turns. I just enjoyed it. I don't think it's. I honestly have revised what I thought in terms of whether it's the strongest hero in the pool. I used to think it was. I no longer believe that. I just believe it's the most satisfying to play.
Mm-hmm. All right. Favorite weapon? I mean, there's not a lot of options for Uprising.
Well, you got
the Majestics.
What do you got? What does Dromai have? Like some magic ribbons or something like that? Like some.
It's I don't. It's the Scepter of Sandakai.
Whatever. I don't know.
I'm guessing, but I like Dromai, but it doesn't even. All it does is give the dragons attack.
Nothing swings, and like the only actual weapon that swings, I think it swings is like the Cinder Blade, right? Like I think that's the only thing or Ember Blade or whatever. That's the only thing that actually you can swing on a bad turn for actual damage. But Waning Moon to me is awesome because there's criteria for you to pop for you to activate it, and it's better on your opponent's turn. And I feel like that's so cool. You can swing it on every single turn, and I think that's pretty greasy. There's no better feeling, honestly, in those limited tournaments, those limited matches where I'd show up and you do the little okay, you got no arcane barrier. Well, must be nice. Let's go. And then you just burn them down. Like that was basically it. That was always my favorite. When you knew you were gonna win, when they you do your damage, then you draw up and it's their turn. I'm like, yeah, okay, you're dead now. You're dead. There's nothing you can do.
And I mean, it's also just satisfying to say, moon you.
Yeah, I will moon you.
Favorite equipment?
Favorite equipment is going to be, I think Heatwave is great. I think Heatwave is awesome. Being able to pop for instant speed, possibly to go ahead and drop an extra 3 damage. You're very rarely going to get 3 Phoenix Flames on one turn in limited, but having 2 in itself is already awesome. And I was able to cast some of the matches in Ohio where it was relevant, where having a Heatwave forced opponents with 2 health to block 1 health or 1 attack Phoenix Flames, and it was definitely a turning point. So having that, I think, was great. And the sash as well, being able to just go ahead and pop for an extra resource. Any of the robes, like the chess pieces, the one that the wizard uses to gain an extra resource on the opponent's turn, and the sash are both great. I think that those are just, head and shoulders the best pieces. Heatwave is probably my fave, though.
Heatwave is pretty sweet. Now, what is your favorite non-hero, non-weapon, non-equipment card? Your run-of-the-mill cards, your non-attacks, your instants.
Oh, it's got to be Erase Face.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, that might be cheating to say, but Erase Face, I had that at the Vegas pre-release sealed. That was one of the cards I pulled, and that absolutely rocketed me to I went undefeated until I lost my last 2 matches. But I was 4-0 to start, and it was off the back of Erase Face because A, it was a popper for dragons. B, it was an immense pressure tactic when you're poking in for low damage on Fi, and you end the chain with Erase Face. They've just been eating damage because you know that their clapback is going to be massive, and suddenly you just drop Erase Face for 6 that they have to answer, otherwise they lose a lot of their Draconic Mojo. So Erase Face for me is probably my favorite one.
That's a great answer, and you know what? Playing a lot of limited, Uprising limited so far, 6s are very good. This is the best 6s have been since Levia. So, it's good to see the 6s play, and I'm glad to get Erase Face into Levia.
Brothers in Arms, I think, is another one, which is a 6. One of the crazy matches, I'm just going to interject real quick here. One of the crazy matches that we got to call in Ohio in the team sealed was Dromai versus Icelander, and they played Themai, like the Teferi dragon, that you can't do stuff on my turn dragon, twice. They dropped 3 fat ass dragons, 2 Themais, and every single time they were stuffed by a popper. They had the dude played 3 Brothers in Arms to pop all 3 dragons, and it's like when it couldn't get worse for the Icelander player. A dude by the name of Terrence. I do not know their last name, but Terrence was awesome. It was probably the match of the day. It was Charles Dunn versus Terrence, and I don't know his last name, but definitely worth a look.
Shout out Terrence. If you're listening, we know that you are. Great job.
He lost, though.
Oh, he lost.
Well, I mean, Dromai versus Icelander is already an uphill battle.
Yeah, very. But still, shout out to Terrence. We love you. Next, we have listener questions. You can always submit listener questions on the Discord, the Buds, which Flake hangs out in there sometimes. You see him. He usually makes fun of me about something, which is just great. I mean, that's just what everybody does in the Buds. So if you want to come make fun of me, join the Discord. But we do have some listener questions. First comes from Smithel, who asks, is Tim Hortons really that good?
No, absolutely not. It used to be. It absolutely used to be. When I was in high school, like 20 years ago, we used to go to Tim Hortons because we were too young to drink, which is something to say in Quebec, because in Quebec you can drink at 18. But when we were like, you get your driver's license at like 16 or 17, and then what do? You're not allowed into bars. You can't drink and drive, or obviously you can't do that, or you can't go anywhere. So we used to go to Tim Hortons because it was open 24 hours. We'd go there, we'd play cards, and the coffee was cheap, good. A donut was like 50 cents. Coffee was like under $1. So you go there with a toonie in your pocket, which you guys don't know anything about, but a $2 coin in your pocket. You slam it on the table, say, coffee, 1 milk, 1 sugar, or the classic double, 2 creams, 2 sugars. give me a small or a medium double and a cruller, and it's all good. Keep the change. You can keep that extra 19 cents or whatever that you're getting, and you go from there. And ultimately, that was it. It was great. However, Tim Hortons decided at some point that it wanted to be McDonald's or Burger King or whatever. In fact, I think the company that owns Burger King bought out Tim Hortons, introduced like lunch menus, breakfast sandwiches. And then they stopped making the donuts in-house. So going into those places was like, it smells of donuts. They're fresh. If there was a donut that you did that you liked that they didn't have, usually they're like, oh, they'll be out in like 15 minutes, and people would wait because they're fresh. No longer the case. All the stuff is brought in like frozen. The coffee company, I believe that they changed coffee suppliers. The coffee is ass. It's terrible. The donuts are stale. And the service is atrocious. So I do not go there unless I absolutely have to for coffee.
You guys heard it here. Flake does not like Tim Hortons. I have one like 20 minutes from my house. I've never been.
Don't support that garbage. No offense. It's just.
Well, I have bad news for you. Tim Hortons is the new sponsor of Fresh and Blood.
Like I believe the company that used to supply Tim Hortons with coffee eventually started when like Tim Hortons dropped it. I think McDonald's picked it up. I could be wrong about that, but nonetheless, McDonald's has. If I'm out on the road or I need to go pick up coffee, I go to McDonald's because their coffee, at least here in Canada, is like head and shoulders better than Tim Hortons coffee. Tim Hortons coffee is literally just disgusting hot water.
Man, I mean, you might get your citizenship revoked by these statements, but
that's fine. It used to be Canadiana. It used to be absolute. You associate Canada with Tim Hortons, which you're doing right now, and that's perfectly fine because, frankly, at a time, we were happy about that. It was it was donuts and coffee. Then, like, the big shakeup was, like, in the late 90s, early 2000s was like, whoa, bagels? Who do you think you are? Like, this is Montreal. We have bagels, but they're like, nope, this is what we're doing. And people are like, okay, we can go get bagels in the morning instead of a donut or a muffin. And then they're like, come see our new Cajun crispy sandwich with true, like, I'm like, who the f do you think you are? Like, who are you? Like, no. Can't do that.
All right. Well, you know what? Dead to me too, man. I'm on your team.
They basically pulled a Paris Hilton. It's like, we get it. You do one thing right. Stop releasing albums. Like, just don't do that. You're not good at it. That's what they tried to do.
Such a shame. Now, Az from Go Again Gaming, our mutual friend, asks a strange question. Can I rub Flake's beaver on my scalp in Lille?
Oh, okay.
What does that mean?
Well, there's a backstory to this. They were doing a giveaway, and I think the credentials for having your entry considered was basically what type of hair product do you use, or what's your shampoo of choice? And my reply was, I just rub a fresh beaver on my scalp every morning, and that gives me the luscious volume that I definitely need. And then I sent tweet and then walked away realizing that, oh Lord, people might misinterpret this. And by the time I checked it back a little later, it had plenty of likes. It also had plenty of comments, one of which was Az saying like, yeah, I'll rub my beaver all over your scalp. And I was like, okay, well, this is on me. This is a me thing. So I will gladly. I think he's going to be at in Lille for the Pro Tour. So I am very excited to have a pint with my good friend Az, and we can then discuss the beaver scalp strategies.
Yeah, well, I hope to have photographic evidence of that, and it be everywhere on all social media. Next comes, well, I guess 2 questions from Patty Shaw, Patty No Rails, Patrick Shaw from the Combat Chain.
Yes, sir.
2 questions.
Canadian.
He's not. No, Pat.
Oh no, his co-host is.
His co-host.
My
is
bad.
Canadian. He is.
He wishes he
unfortunately, from the Boston area. Sorry, Pat. Go Yankees. How does the rest of the tournament react when the venue ends up being next to the party of a century? You played off well, but what's the vibe in the room when Eric is giving the funniest best man speech ever spoken 100 feet away? I don't know what this is in reference to, but hopefully you can enlighten us.
Yeah, well, in Ohio, I think this is what he's referencing, is in Ohio, the hall that the tournament was next to a wedding reception. So day one was was pretty gritty because there was or was it day 1 or day 2? I think it was day 1. Yeah, because it was myself and Brendan Patrick. So it was day 1, the Saturday. There was a wedding reception going on, and in the crux of like the finals is when they're doing all the intros, the music's bumping, everyone's going crazy, and then they're doing the speeches, and we are literally through these paper thin walls trying to cast a match, and it was absolutely look. Congratulations, Abigail and Dylan, on your wonderful marriage. It is. We wish you loads and loads of happiness over a long period of time. But it was fun. Again, the main aspect of this tournament in Ohio was to have fun. It was a community event. There was games going on that was like almost seemed like secondary to the fact that everybody wanted to be there to have a good time. And Brendan and I, and to Brendan's credit, Brendan, who's been transitioning to broadcasting over competitive play. So him and I cast one of the like the later matches, and we had a blast with it. It was just a lot of fun, and yeah, I mean, how does it feel? We channeled that energy. We basically raised a glass and gave a toast to Abby and Dylan. Abadil is what I like to, I'm shipping them as Abadil.
Well, yeah, congrats to the newlyweds. That's awesome. Now, Pat's second question is a little more flesh and blood related. Has James White accidentally or otherwise spilled too many beans to you and asked you to cut something out? And then he puts in all caps, do you know more than you let on?
Well, there's two parts to this question. He's very good at not letting anything out that he does not intend to. However, there is a moment where we're like, okay, cameras are live. If you need anything, not live, but cameras are hot. If you need us to cut anything out, obviously we can. And then at the end of it, it's like, all right, it's just you and I. No more recording. It's just you and I. And usually we have a nice discussion afterwards. We'll chill and talk for about 10 or 15 minutes. Afterwards, that's where the beans are spilled. And I would never betray that trust, but I do know things. I know a lot of things that unfortunately I cannot say. But they're all good things. And that's I would never want to ruin the opportunity for someone like James or LSS to share those kinds of pieces of news. I would never want to be the person to, because you know what, people who know things and leak them, it's no longer about the game, it's about them. It's so I cherish my relationship with LSS. I'm very happy that they like what I do, and I would never want to jeopardize a relationship with the company. But more so, James is like a friend of mine now, and I would never want to betray the trust in the same way that when you and I whisper sweet nothings into each other's DMs, I would never want to let those out into the open.
Well, if you're going to release those, put them behind a paywall because they are steamy. I will say that. But I will betray James White's trust. He told me in confidence that LSS is a blue cheese
I don't think so.
loving company. So it's official. There's going to be an article. In a few weeks, I'm writing it
though, and that's
oh, you're writing it.
I'm gonna have the rebuttal.
Oh no, that'd be like the craziest way to have like a debate over different articles on the same game website.
Imagine it's LSS just on fabtcg.com. Here's a new article series, 10 parts. It's written by Tommy Fresh and Matt DeMarco. Blue cheese or ranch? Here's 10,000 words split into 5. Let's go.
Well, you'd really know that Flesh and Blood's going downhill if that's the content coming out. But hey, listen, watch out for it. Gary here says, "What's it like to have Uprising already? We know what it's like. It's terrible. America should have it now." But yeah, I mean, you didn't even get to crack it really yet, so you don't. I
haven't had opportunity. No. Well, here's the thing. It's like, all I can say is that when I was in Ohio, I was drafting a lot because they were able to do on-demand drafts there. Not to mention, we had some secret drafts, as it were, some speakeasy underground in the basement secret drafts of it, and that was fun. It was a lot of fun. What does it feel like, man? It's one of those things where all I want to do is every weekend just sign up for a draft and spend like 2-3 hours drafting, playing games, and then having a good time. That's what I'm most horny for, man, when it comes to it. Like this, it feels good to have it, but your guys are literally days away. So you're almost there. But I can honestly say that it feels great. You guys are basically, you guys with your, shunning of the metric system. This is where it comes back to haunt you. This is the payback, because you guys have been off the metric system and shunning that stuff. And this is it. You guys don't want the metric system. You ain't getting Uprising. That's the deal.
Yeah, you know what? I'm cool with using miles for the rest of my life. Well, next, Darth Prentice, aka Greg, says, well, he wants to know from both of us, how do we stay motivated to produce content? I'll let you start.
Oh, that's a good question. That is a great question. Honestly, it would be a cop out answer for me to say just it's a great game to do content for. There's constantly stuff that I want to do. I will say that it has absolutely helped me, given the fact that I've been able to attend a lot of events and meet a lot of people. So there's always a new voice, or always an opinion or a point of view or an event that I can pull inspiration from to create content. It wasn't always the case early on in my ventures with Instant Speed and Flesh and Blood in general. It's this, I had to call in an assload of favors just to get the first 5 guests. And that could have been a slog, because when you're not connected, when you don't know what's going on, when you haven't attended events, there's only so much you could talk about. It's like looking through the window and trying to assess. You're looking in the window and you're like, okay, I see this, I see that, whatever, but you don't get a full picture. I've had the opportunity lately to be able to go in the store and peruse and give a better report. So there's always inspiration in that regard. So staying motivated is mainly and chiefly about having a true passion for the content that you're producing, for the subject matter, the resource that you're tapping into. If I didn't have that, and I have lost that in other games, and I'm not afraid of it or shy of it to say, there's months where I'll be like, yeah, I pumped out 20 videos this month. And there were months where I'm like, I put out 4. Like, why? What is it? And once you dig into it, you realize it's like, wow, I really don't have the burning passion for it that I thought I did. So you really need to have a true, and I mean that fire will eventually dwindle, but a breeze will come through and reignite it. But on those, you need to make sure that passion is true, that at the end of the day, the foundation is a true love of the resource material, of the source material rather. So that's probably it. And it may sound like there's no easy out. There's no sort of, well, when I'm lacking content, I go to this website. No, it's none of that. It has to be the fact that you are willing to dig and find because you want to dig and find, not because you just need to put out a video. That's part of it.
Yeah, and I'm in a similar boat. I mean, to me, it's just, if I didn't want to do it, I wouldn't do it, right? And I'm sure there are weeks where, leading up to recording the podcast, I personally am like, I don't know if I can muster up the energy. I mean, this week, like, it's pretty crazy for work. I just got to look forward to talking to you, Flake. So, I carried me to that. But, sometimes the nice thing about a podcast, right? People expect it every week, right? They want it every week, and they'll let you know if they're upset about it not coming out in a week. And maybe that's not the best kind of inspiration to put out a podcast, but it's something to keep in mind. Like, hey, listen, it's like people are expecting this, and that's, if you think about it, pretty cool, right? To be part of their programming, and yeah, that's how I do it anyway. And just I look at a picture of Ken's blue cheese and just get to work.
Fired up, yeah.
Coffee Cody asks, any goals for the hashtag Fab Fitness Challenge? In his opinion, it would be great to see a tenet of the already welcoming and fantastic player base support balance and dialogue around physical and mental health.
So, I've and you know this, I've spoken about this to you privately. I'm very open about it. I've struggled with mental health issues for many years, ever since I moved to Toronto away from family and friends. back in 2015. It has been an absolute struggle for me at times because I never had the same comforts or outlets for myself, be it friends or just things that I like going to watch a hockey game at my buddy's basement, picking up a pizza and just those are therapeutic because they're comforting. What are my goals for the Fab Fitness Challenge? Honestly, my goals are to make sure that the people who have goals are attaining their goals. My goal is to support all those who need to attain their goals more so than I do. I've really put a lot of effort into maintaining my mental health. It came to a very dangerous near end in January, and I'm glad for those who have been there in my corner to help me through it. And I am very much someone who understands the importance of having people support you and knowing that there's always someone there who is at least aware of your struggles. So my goals, honestly, for myself personally, if I were to give myself one, it's just literally just to shed an easy 10 pounds. I mean, I say easy, and that's a lot, is just going to be diet and discipline and being able to share that struggle. And the way that Brendan Patrick's mentioned, he's like, communal suffering makes it a little bit more digestible. And I wholeheartedly agree. So that to me is my personal goal, is just to eat better and maintain some semblance of exercise on the daily basis, and just supporting the people within the community, not just Instant Speed's community, but the Flesh and Blood community who have goals. And so far, there have been many people within the Instant Speed Discord who have shared their goals, and they stem from weight loss to mental health, to stability, to merely just being able to enjoy their day to day even more, and that's important.
It's yeah, and it's important, and obviously, I understand the mental health struggle. I've been there myself, and I think it's important to let everybody know that you love them, right? You don't want
Hey,
to
I
be
tell
the
you all the
person.
time. I'll tell you right now. I love you, Tommy Fresh, and I truly mean it.
I love you, Flake, and
Thank you.
for me, when it comes to the Fab Fitness Challenge, I'm not a huge fan of challenges when it comes to fitness and health. I believe, and this is my own belief, that fitness and health should be something that you have to work into your life. And as someone, I used to be weigh about 80 pounds heavier than I weigh now, and as someone who had to make that journey, I know that it can't be done in a month, and it has to be a lifestyle change, and it is hard. And I do agree with Brendan that communal suffering is something that can help, but also it might not help for everyone. So, I personally want to put it out there, like, if anybody has goals, figure them out, and don't feel pressure to do it in a month. Don't it, and if it doesn't happen in a month, it might take a little bit longer, and that's important to know, because the last thing you need is the physical aspirations to start affect the mental aspirations, because they are very much in tandem, and I want people to feel good in every possible way, and to always work on it. So next, I'm going to answer the next question for you. Deli Opera, who we know and we've been on his channel, asked if Flake had to live in the U.S., which state would he pick? It's New Jersey.
It's not New Jersey. It's definitely not New Jersey. My answer to this, you know what? For a long time, it used to be Florida, because my parents have their retirement condo there. I have good family there. I've been there a lot. The weather's good. But it's definitely not Florida. Definitely not Texas. It's definitely not the United States, frankly. No offense to all of y'all, but I am very fiercely proud Canadian. I love where I live. I am very, very happy to be Canadian and live where I live. But if I were to say, I would probably say Minnesota. I have a lot of very, very close friends there, almost family in Minnesota. I used to visit there pre-pandemic. I used to visit there about 3 times a year to go visit friends there. And all it cost me was basically a plane trip, and I had a place to stay. They would feed me. It was like staying with family. So I have to say there, but and honestly, besides that friends and family part, I think it's possibly also because they have a very, very big hockey culture there. And I know that this is going to make me sound ultra Canadian, but in all honesty, I think that the other question, the other honest answer would probably be California, purely because I'm a Los Angeles Dodgers fan. The weather is going to be perfect, and there's 4 baseball teams I can choose from, and like 5 hockey teams or whatever. Like there's like 3 basketball teams, 3 hockey teams, 4 baseball teams. Like for a sports nut like myself, I have options, and that's all I want.
Well, I mean, Jersey's cool too. Andromeda says, asks, what's your favorite hockey team? And I believe I know the answer to this one.
I am a season ticket holder of the Montreal Canadiens, even though I live in Toronto. I was on their waiting list for like almost 10 years before tickets opened up. And it's just so happened that the year that I moved to Toronto was the year that I got finally accepted for hockey tickets. So I share them with 4 of my close friends. I go to maybe 1 game a year, even though I'm a season ticket holder. But I usually give the tickets to family or friends or try to sell them. But yeah, it's definitely the Montreal Canadiens. 24 World Championships, 24 Stanley Cups. One of the most storied and historical franchises in all of any sports. To me, they are basically like the New York Yankees of hockey, in terms of prestige, success, championships, elegance, all of that.
All the above. Dr. Unks or Drunks or whatever you want to call them. Is there anything more terrifying than an angry moose?
Yeah, it's Handsome Roy, which I believe is the name of his car, if I'm not mistaken. Or Handsome Roy. He told me the name of his car while we were in Vegas, and I'm actually surprised that I remembered it. So this is for you, Dr. Unks. I hope you're listening. An angry moose. There's a video that's on YouTube somewhere of a moose going through snow that is probably 6 feet of snow, and the moose is just sprinting through it like it's nothing, like it's air. An angry moose is probably the most dangerous thing in Canada besides the Freedom Convoy.
The Freedom Convoy. That came through New Jersey, man. That was crazy.
Yeah, F those guys. But yeah, an angry moose is most likely that. I mean, that and polar bears. Polar bears are way far north. Like, they're not even on the radar for most Canadian cities. But moose, man, like, they go where they want. They do what they want. They're like a ton of fun, literally and figuratively.
And they weigh a ton, yeah. Farsis says, when you provide commentary for LSS, does LSS provide you with accommodations when traveling?
That is something that is actually it's fascinating because I have worked for I've worked for various different entities. I've worked for CDPR with Gwent for 5-6 years. Everybody's different. It's honestly, everybody's different. CDPR used to would fly me into Warsaw, give me a hotel and rides to and from wherever the hell we're going. And everything was covered. Like, you can go there with like $10 in your pocket and live like a king because they covered everything. The thing is LSS, CDPR did everything in house. They had a studio, they had producers, they had everything that are on the payroll. LSS has to basically hire an entity like SCG, like Channel Fireball, to run this stuff, and then it's up to the discretion of those companies as to what they're doing. The compensation is always great. When we're there, SCG, Channel Fireball have always treated us immensely well. They take care of us, they feed us, they while we're there, they really, really do a good job to make sure that we are well taken care of. And that makes us want to work even harder for them and go above and beyond where we can. People like Tan and Grace, who are running around like complete psychopaths, taking pictures, running interviews, just going nuts, and then sitting in a booth for an hour and commenting on a match. So it's really up to whoever's doing it. So I can say in the past, no, we have not. Jersey was out of my own pocket. Same thing for hotel, accommodations and travel. Indianapolis was the same. Orlando was the same. However, we have had discussions with LSS to sort of set a precedent for not just ourselves, but for the industry to say, this is something that I think is important to us. that we're taken care of, because it's not the same for, you know, somebody in New Jersey to travel to New Jersey or to travel to Pennsylvania or wherever. But for myself in Canada, I got to cross a border. It becomes difficult and it becomes costly. So that we don't make the same money, or we're not paid equally in that regard, because our expenses are completely different. But I'm happy to say that this is something that LSS has been very sensitive about, and they have been very accommodating in that when they're putting on an event, they want us as casters to only worry about bringing our A game and performing well. When we're there, we bust our asses. We're there from 8 a.m. through till about 7 p.m. every single day. And we're constantly, and like when we're not on screen, we're not just dicking around. One of us is usually on an iPad putting the card images up on screen that you guys see when you're viewing a broadcast. Another person is out there collecting deck lists and conducting interviews. It's a whole shebang. We don't get to do anything. You cram about 100 M&Ms in your mouth over the course of a day, and that's it. And then you go home exhausted. But LSS has been incredibly, incredibly accommodating moving forward, that they heard our concerns because they're new to this as well. So when people like myself, like Tannen, like Brian, vets, like it's weird to call myself a veteran, but like veterans of the industry have basically said, this is what we want. Can you make it happen? And here's reasons why. And it has been heard and it has been accommodated. So but that's not, as far as I understand, that's not industry standard, or it's not like just assumed, because half of my paycheck sometimes goes to the accommodations and the travel, and that is, that can be tough.
Yeah, well, and I think it's worth noting that it is, we're still in the first year really of commentary and large events for Flesh and Blood and LSS. I mean, the amount that's changed since should only help towards getting to that goal. And yeah, hopefully we get there, and I have no doubt that we will. Anthony, aka Salty Sea Cat, who we hung out with in Vegas, asked Terrence or Philip.
Oh man. Well, one is not my buddy friend, the other's not my friend guy, and the other's not a guy buddy. So I don't have a preference. I think they're both ridiculous. But I am a firm believer that South Park is one of the best satirical shows that has ever existed ever. And however, I'm willing to argue that The Boys, the show The Boys, is a brilliant snapshot of current day satire. It is so damn good. It's ridiculous, but it is probably the most daring satire I've ever seen, aside from the most ridiculous South Park episodes. But like South Park wrote the book on very poignant, in-your-face satire.
I'm going to have to agree with you there. And last listener question here is from Campolo, a.k.a. Andrea Biaggi.
Andrea Biaggi.
The notorious Biaggi. Do you have any embarrassing stories from casting Flesh and Blood tournaments?
Yes, I do. I have plenty, and I'm willing to. I will not tell anybody what tournament it was, because I kind of hoped that it flew under the radar. But I'm very, very transparent about this stuff, because it's recorded. It's out there. It's not like I'm hiding it. There was a match, a Flesh and Blood match, where I think it was Aura Prism, and we're just discussing strategy. I believe it was Brian Gottlieb and I. So there's a clue for you. Brian Gottlieb and I. And what I said was, what I wanted to say was that, I'm just sort of setting the scene, and I'm saying, Prism's going to take her licks for a while. She's going to take some damage, but she wants to establish an aura game, build a board state, and eventually she will stabilize. She'll be able to donate cards to blocking, and then we'll be able to start swinging back with all these auras. And once that occurs, unfortunately for I forgot what player it was, the Starvo player. I'm like, unfortunately for the Starvo player, it's going to be death by 1,000. And then I want to say cuts, but I slid an N in there somewhere. So that's out there. And I don't say I'm not proud of it, but hey, it is what it is.
It happens. It happens. I remember when this happened.
Okay, so you know full well people out there will be able to sort of dig it up if they choose to, but that is probably the most egregious recently. However, you want another example, when I used to stream daily, I used to stream Gwent for 4 or 5 hours a day. And when I'm streaming and what I say on stream is not necessarily the same Flake you get on broadcast, because you have responsibilities to the people who are hiring you. So certain things get dialed down and certain things get dialed up. There's that persona. However, there was a card in Gwent that basically said that whenever you played a spell, it would duplicate itself.
Mhm.
So the more chain spells you put together, the more the board state would grow with these small little elves. And what I said was, well, if that elf sticks and they get another turn, they're going to be able to pop off X spell, which leads into this, and eventually you're gonna see that thing spread like elven herpes. And I said that, and that's what I would call that card. I used to call that card elven herpes on my stream, and it just snuck out. And I was like, okay, I'm like, we're just gonna play it off. I'm not gonna mention it again. However, my co-caster started referring to it as elven herpes, and I was like, all right, we're good. So that happened a couple of years ago, and it was just like all in all, there's Showtime Flake, and then there's sort of private time Flake, and a little Showtime Flake was left a little window open, so private Flake kind of just waltzed in there and threw a death by 1,000 C words and some elven herpes there.
It happens. A simple slip of the tongue. We can't expect too much from you, but
No, don't, please don't.
So those are the listener questions. We went pretty long. We had a ton, and I wanted to answer, get everybody.
No, I appreciate it. I love answering questions, so don't be shy.
I wanted you to do a little recap. Just give me just a quick recap of the weekend in Ohio. Just give us the greatest hits, and because it interests me because it was a large, money pool tournament that was not in the LSS. I mean, obviously it was sanctioned, right? It was a tournament organizer did it, but it was not like a calling or anything like that. And
right.
It's unique in that way. And there have been a couple of other 1Ks and 5Ks out there before, but this was a 10K. I just, this is something I would like to see more of, because, and you can start to see them elsewhere. For example, I know there's one at Owl Central Games in Lancaster in the end of July is doing a 1K. I'd love to see that. I'm going to go to that one. So, give us a little recap on how it went and where we can go from there.
So, Keith and Jacob from Realm Gaming are tremendous human beings. From the get-go, when we first sort of made contact and started discussing it and sharing a few messages back and forth about it, we had a Zoom call. We had like a video call or whatever. Then I met them in Vegas, or I met Keith in Vegas. We chatted, talked about the store and talked about the experience. And they're gamers too. Like they were talking to me about their foray into it and what sort of led them to do it. And it came down to a situation where like they sold a bunch of cards, Magic cards that they used to collect. Then they wanted to buy some, and it turned out to be like, well, it's just cheaper to just buy the whole store than it is to buy this collection we want. So they bought a whole store, and then they started renovating it. They absolutely are community first people. Absolutely 100% community first people. The event that they put on was basically a situation of, we want to give something to the community that they'll be excited for, that they'll want more of. And I think they did that. Excuse me. Ooh. I think they did that in droves. Now, the problem is that, if you're not in a major city, it's hard for people to make it out there. So the numbers of the tournament looked a little bit weak, but it's not for the fact that the tournament itself was anything but stellar. The players that were there were excellent. You had Michael Fang, Michael Hamilton, Brendan Patrick, Dalen Mack, Yanji Yang. You had so many A quality threats out there. The casting, myself and Charmer and Brendan jumped on the mic. Elaine was there, Carolina was there. All they wanted to ensure was that the community had an outlet to celebrate and have a good time during the game. They ran the team seal, they ran the CC. They were fair about everything. They were accommodating about everything. It was a top tier event, and they absolutely probably did not get the ROI that they wanted from a financial standpoint, but they also got screwed by the Uprising delay. So their CC tournament format was a little screwy, but it was fascinating. But they were not shook by this. They were a little bit disappointed in terms of that. They wish that there were more people, but we had multiple conversations throughout the weekend of how can we make this better. And between myself, Keith, Jacob, Charmer, Brendan, chatting about the future of what that kind of series was, they are all in on this game and this community. And I can do nothing but sit back and support it because they're good people. And when good people want to do good things, I have to get behind that. And I will constantly get behind that. And, they brought me in as talent, but we became friends. It was insane. Like, they're like, anything you want, we'll take care of. And, it's very accommodating, They're like, listen, I know you said you wanted to leave on Sunday night, but we extended the Airbnb through Sunday night. So if you need to rest or whatever. And I'm like, I absolutely did. But they're like, we just want to make sure that you got everything you need. And the same with the players here, players there, everything was top notch. And for those who are unaware, Realm Gaming in Ohio, if you're in the area, check them out. Follow them on Twitter, go to their website, do all that stuff, because these are people that need this, that should be supported. Not saying that anyone shouldn't be, but I mean, these are people who are putting their blood, sweat, and tears and wallet ahead of everything else. It's like, we're going to put this on the line to really pump the tires on this game in their community. And the next tournament they want to do, it's not a 10K. They're like, okay, the 10K didn't go quite what we wanted to, so let's do a 25K. It's like, what? So we've been actually chatting, and we have the framework for what is going to be basically a massive event, and that's in the works. So keep your mind's eye open about that stuff, because it's going to be big. But the other thing that we told them was also like, maybe keep it closer to one of the big cities, like Cleveland or Columbus or Cincinnati or something. Like, move it to a city where people don't have to. The one thing I got to say is, like, everything to them was close because it's a small town and anything under a 30-minute drive is close. But in order to get to the place, I needed to go to the near McDonald's to connect to the Wi-Fi because there was like no service where I was at. Beautiful little town. But that's the issue. Brendan was like, there's no Ubers at all. There's not a single Uber driver in this entire city. How do I get there? So we had to accommodate that. However, one text message to either Keith or Jacob, and they were in the car coming to get you, picking you up with like coffee and a donut or something. Like, so I can't speak highly enough about the event and about these people.
Yeah, I definitely wish I was there. Just scheduling and whatnot. But I did get to meet Keith in Jersey. Great guy and very enthusiastic about Flesh and Blood, which is what we need, right? For Flesh and Blood at these. It is LGS, right? It might not be your LGS, but it is an LGS, and I know a lot of people complain. Rightfully so, when their LGS cannot get product. But in the meantime, I think we should start looking at these other good people that are running events, outside of, the big corporate stuff, and kind of supporting them. So I do implore people to check out Realm. They have social media and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess look out for a goddamn 25K, which should be interesting. Maybe that'll get me into Ohio.
Dude, I'm telling you, worth the drive indeed. It's not just going to be. I mean, I don't want to steal any of their thunder for announcing any of this stuff, but I will say this: you've heard me talk to James, talk to people about like in my mind what a really fun event would be, which is like wrestling. Yeah, they're like, oh yeah, okay, we're gonna start scouting stadiums. I was like, you're joking, right? He's like, no, that sounds freaking amazing. I was like, okay. So yeah, there's gonna be something that is over the top. I'm not kidding you. What we want to do is we want to make sure that the people who are there to jam games and try hard will have a reason to stay the Sunday. Like we want to do. I think the plan was let's do a 1-day battle hardened if we can get one, and on the Saturday, and then on the Sunday it is just some crazy shiz, my friend. That's the plan, and I will let them sort of parse out the rest.
Well, I am very intrigued, and I hope to be there. And that is super.
Oh, you're going to be
exciting.
there.
Oh, I'm going to be there.
You're going to be there.
Well, Flake, thank you so much for coming on. Always a pleasure having you on. I just, love catching up with you and just doing stuff with you. It's the
Hey, man.
best.
I love you. You know that, and I
love you
will
too.
continue
Oh
to
my
say.
God.
So, yeah.
Let's wait till after I stop recording. No,
You're here with your no sleeves, dumbbells in the background, showing off that you're a badass. I get it. You're trying to seduce me.
This is an audio only podcast. People can only imagine what's going on right now on these cameras. But
Dude, you look like you're about to go audition for like a Tony Soprano scene where he just wakes up and is like, you got the wife beater, the chain. You look rugged. You look prepared. You look in charge, is what you look.
All I need is some gabagool and some prosciutto, and we're good. But can you please, for the love of God, plug all of your things, my friend?
Sure. We'll be very concise on this. On Twitter @WatchFlake. On Discord, I'm around Discord. I have the Instant Speed Podcast Discord. And Instant Speed Podcast is @InstantSpeedPod on Twitter. And if you go to youtube.com/983media, that is the number 983 and then media, you'll find the stack and you'll find Instant Speed. And that's about it. I mean, I'm somebody who takes pride in the fact that I reply to about 95% or 99% of the messages I get, because if you take the time, I at the very least owe you a reply. So if you do want to reach out, I'm more than happy to talk to you. So don't be shy.
And yeah, I'll be reaching out soon. You can find me on Twitter @FreshBudsPod. The YouTube's Fresh and Buds, Discord, the Buds. Check it out. Check out the Patreon. I forgot to mention at the top of the show, but the Patreon is cooking. I do some bonus eps on there that are just really silly. So if you want some silly stuff, check it out. It help me keep the lights on, the mics hot, and and if you want to rate on Spotify and stuff like that, that stuff helps when people look for Flesh and Blood podcasts, and do the same for Instant Speed, please. It's one of the best in the game. And then I always like to end with some food, and I'm not going to give you the option to talk about ranch because I already, I take enough abuse, but I want to know BLT or bacon, egg, and cheese.
Oh, I mean, we're going with the hot versus cold to a degree, right? I mean, the bacon, egg, and cheese is just a classic. You can't go wrong there. I'm actually a sausage over bacon style person when it comes to the sandwich. It just feels cleaner to me. It feels more, it's round sausage on a round bread item. I feel like that's best.
Sure.
I mean, if I had to choose, I would always go with the bacon, egg, and cheese. I think that is absolutely the better, the superior option.
I'm going to have to agree. Most times I do love a BLT, but sometimes you just wake up, whether you're hungover or not, and you just need a bacon, egg, and cheese. But with that, I'll say goodbye to everybody. Please have a good week.